Club besties, it's Miss Puglisi. We're back for another session of the one and only Ivan. Yesterday we had our morning meeting and we asked our students what they're really loving about online learning and what they're struggling with, and so many of my friends told me that they love our book club, and that just makes me so happy. I'm so happy that some of you are here. Not everyone's participating, so it makes everything feel very worthwhile when I know that there's even 1 or 2 of you listening. And I believe we have about 9 every day or 10 people in our book club, which is a good amount. So that makes me very, very happy, and I'm happy to read this book with you. We are pretty close to halfway done with our book, and we just met Ruby a couple sessions ago, and I can assume that most of us really like her and really love her as an addition to the Big Top Mall. But we discussed that some of us felt like we wish she was still in the wild, obviously. But we're hoping that she provides a positive comfort to Ivan and to Stella and to Bob. We are starting off on page 106. We are in the hundreds. If you are reading along with us, you can see a picture, and I will show that to our friends that are just listening along after we're done reading. It's titled A Hit. Here we go. Stella's foot hurts too much for her to do any hard tricks for the 2 o'clock show. Instead, Mac pulls her, limping, into the ring where she tracks a circle in the sawdust. Ruby clings to her like a shadow. Ruby's eyes go wide when Snicker jumps on Stella's back and then leaps onto her head. At the 4 o'clock show, Stella can only get as far as the entrance to the ring. Ruby refuses to leave her side. At the 7 o'clock show, Stella stays in her domain. When Mac comes for Ruby, Stella whispers something in her ear. Ruby looks at her pleadingly, which almost looks like please don't make me go, please, please. She's like panicked. But after a moment, she follows Mac to the ring. Ruby stands alone. The bright lights make her blink. She flaps her ears. She makes her tiny trumpet sound. The humans stop eating their popcorn. They coo, they clap, which means like, ooh, oh. It's an encouraging sound. Ruby is a hit. I don't know whether to be happy or sad. So that was from Ivan's voice. And this is Ruby at the show. Now, as you can see, and as I can see, it doesn't look like she's very happy to be there. It doesn't look like she's enjoying it. So even though she is a hit, which means she's a success, everyone loves her, everyone adores her, everyone thinks she's very cute, I don't think that she's necessarily happy to be up there. And I think being apart from Stella makes her a little bit upset. 108, worry. When Julia arrives after the show, she brings 3 thick books, 1 pencil, and something she calls magic markers. Here, Ivan, she says, and she slides 2 magic markers and a piece of paper into my domain. I like the sundown colors, red and purple, but I don't feel like coloring. I'm worried about Stella. All evening she's been quiet and she hasn't eaten a bit of her dinner. Julia follows my gaze. Where is Stella anyway? She asks, and she goes to Stella's gate. Ruby extends her trunk and Julia pats it. Hi, baby, she says. Is Stella all right? Stella is lying in a pile of dirty hay. Her breath is ragged, which means it's not consistent, and it looks like she's in a lot of pain. Dad, Julia calls. Could you come here a minute? George sets aside his mop. Do you think she's okay, Dad? Julia asks. Look at the way she's breathing. Can we call Mac? I think there's something really wrong. He must know about her, George rubs his chin. He always knows. But a vet costs money, Jules. Please, Julia's eyes are wet. Call him, Dad. So now I'm getting a sense while I'm reading that other people are starting to become worried about Stella. It's not just Ivan. It's not just me. Other characters are realizing that something really bad is happening here, and Stella's in a lot of pain. But we know, and I know, that vet bills are very, very expensive, especially for wild animals like elephants, and Mac typically doesn't want to call them, so let's see what happens. George gazes at Stella. He puts his hand on his hips and sighs. He calls Mac. I can't hear all of his words, but I can see George's lips tighten in a grim line. Gorilla expressions and human expressions are a lot alike. Max says the vet's coming in the morning if Stella's not any better, he tells Julia. He says he's not going to let her die on him, not after all the money he put into her. which is selfish that he only wants to keep her alive because of the money, but it is reassuring that maybe he will try to help her. George strokes Julia's hair. She'll be all right. She's a tough old girl. Julia sits by Stella's domain until it's time to go home. She doesn't do her homework. She doesn't even draw. My domain gleams with moonlight when I awake to the sound of Stella's calls. Ivan, Stella says in a hoarse whisper. Ivan. I'm here, Stella, I sit up abruptly, and Bob topples off my stomach. I run to a window. I can see Ruby next to Stella, sleeping soundly. Ivan, I want you to promise me something, Stella says. Anything, I say. I've never asked for a promise before because promises are forever, and forever is an unusually long time, especially when you're in a cage. Domain, I correct. Domain, she agrees. I straighten to my full height. I promise, Stella, I say in a voice like my father's. But you haven't even heard what I'm asking yet, she says, and she closes her eyes for a moment. Her great chest shudders. I promise anyway. Stella doesn't say anything for a long time. Never mind, she firmly says. I don't know what I was thinking. The pain is making me addled. Ruby stirs. Her trunk moves, as if she is reaching for something that isn't there. When I say the words, they surprise me. You want me to take care of Ruby. Stella nods, a small gesture that makes her wince. If she could have a life that's different than mine. She needs a safe place, Ivan, not here, I say. It would be easier to promise to stop eating, to stop breathing, to stop being a gorilla. I promise, Stella, I say. I promise it on my word as a silverback. Wow, I feel very emotional. I'm on the cusp of tearing up here. I think that, as sad as it is, I think Stella knows that she's not going to be around much longer. But I think that she loves Ruby like her daughter, and she asks Ivan to protect her and give her a life that's different than hers. What do you think that means? I'm going to give you a second to think about it. She wants a life for Ruby that's different than her own. Hopefully you have your idea. I'm thinking that means that Stella doesn't want Ruby to live in a domain or a zoo. And she's asking Ivan to help her or promise her that he will help Ruby get out of here if she doesn't end up staying around much longer. And Ivan says, it would be easier to promise to stop eating, to stop breathing, to stop being a gorilla. Meaning, it's not an easy promise to keep. Knowing. Before Mac, before Bob, even before Ruby, I know that Stella is gone. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. I know it the way you know the summer is over and winter is on its way. I just know. Stella once teased me that elephants are superior because they feel more joy and more grief than apes. Your gorilla hearts are made of ice, Ivan, she said, her eyes glittering. Ours are made of fire. Right now, I would give all the yogurt raisins in the world for a heart made of ice. So we know that Miss Stella has gone to heaven. And that makes me very sad. 5 Men, page 115. Bob heard from a rat, a reliable source, that they tossed Stella's body into a garbage truck. It took 5 men and a forklift. Comfort. All day I try to comfort Ruby. But what can I say? That Stella had a good and happy life. That she lived as she was meant to live. That she died with those who loved her the most nearby. At least the last is true. So I think at this point, Ivan's trying to comfort Ruby, who just lost basically a mama to her. And he's asking us, like, how can I say she had a wonderful life? How can I say that she lived where she's meant to? He can't say those things. She was kept in a zoo that treated her badly. But he does say that the last part is true, and that part is that she died with those who loved her most nearby. Ivan, Bob, and Ruby. Page 117, crying. Julia cries all evening while her father sweeps and mops and dusts and cleans the toilets. When George sees Mac, he runs to him. I can only hear a few of his words. Vet, should have, wrong. Mac shrugs. His shoulders droop. He leaves without a word. When George wipes the fingerprints off my glass, his cheeks are wet. He doesn't meet my eyes. So we can see that even George is angry at Mac. I think that he maybe have said to him, you really should have gotten a vet and you did something wrong. And Mac just brushes it off. Which shows us a lot of who Mac is. And I think a lot of us don't trust Mac. The one and only Ivan. When all the humans have left, I send Bob to check on Ruby. How is she? I ask when he returns. She was shivering, Bob says. I tried to cover her with hay and I told her not to worry because you were going to save her. I glare at him. You told her that? You promised Stella, Bob lowers his head. I wanted to make the kid feel better. I shouldn't have made that promise, Bob. I just wanted... I point to Stella's domain, and for a moment, it feels like I've forgotten how to breathe. I wanted to make Stella happy, I guess, but I can't save Ruby. I can't even save myself. I flop onto my back. The cement is always cold, but tonight it hurts. Bob leaps onto my belly. You are the one and only Ivan, he says. Mighty Silverback. He licks my chin, and he's not even checking for leftovers. Say it, Bob commands. Bob seems a little like me, making you say some affirmations here. I like Bob. I look away. Say it, Ivan. I don't answer, so Bob licks my nose until I can't stand it any longer. I am the one and only Ivan, I mutter. Don't you forget it, he says. When I gaze at the food court skylight, the moon Stella loved is shrouded in clouds. Maybe that's Stella's way of saying hello. So let's close there. That was on page 120. And I just want to talk to you as an animal lover, and as most of you are too. Sometimes real life isn't always happy. And sometimes we lose people that we love. And sometimes we lose animals that we love. And just this year, if you were in my class, you know that I lost someone that I love, my grandma. And I got through that loss by my students helping me and making me smile, and surrounding myself with family and friends. And I'm always open with my students and with all of you, and I tell you how emotional I am. And I basically almost cried reading about Stella passing away. But I do think that Stella may be setting us up for a new purpose for Ivan, to protect Ruby and to ensure that she has a different life. And I'm hoping that that's where this book takes us, to making sure that Ruby, at least as a baby, as a gentle, gentle baby, is given a better life. I sure hope so. Now, if you're feeling sad, it's okay. And if you're feeling nothing much, that's okay too. But I'm here for you, and I promise that this book is going to get more positive as we keep reading, and the ending is the best in the entire world. But there may be some bumps on the way. Now, if you want anyone to talk to, you can always email me, and our Google form will be one where we can talk about our emotions that we're feeling, because it's okay to feel them. But to remind you, this is just a book. Okay, we're going to wrap up for today. I promise tomorrow it'll be a little bit more upbeat. But let's think about Stella. She wouldn't want us to be sad. She would want us to protect Ruby. And hopefully that's what happens. If you're in my class, remember to fill out the Google form in our Google Classroom. If you aren't in our class and you are following along, remember to subscribe to my channel to know when new videos are uploaded. And you can follow me at Miss Pugz with a Z on Instagram to see what's going on in our online classroom and my real life classroom when we eventually go back. And I will see you tomorrow.